when I started, this is my seventh attempt to do this shit. And when I started, had the glasses on, had the bracelet on, I was like ready to go. I was like, I think the last two I just kind of ranted. I was like, okay, I can't. I don't know how to talk about this stuff. Um, I'm really good with like specifics. Like opposition to pornography gave me very specific things to go with. Sex positivity, it's so basic. It's like, yeah, I mean, you're an ape. You're a sexual creature. You're an animal. Of course, you're going to be into sex, and you should be okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, how else are we going to move the species if you can't accept sexual expression in some way, right? I mean, let's be fair. People who are in opposition to the sexual expression in that way are opposed to sex. I guess, I don't know. I mean, they have, I mean, Ray Billy and them. They're also fucking. We know they're fucking. But the ability to have people be able to go out there and express themselves sexually should be a part of that. It's ironic because they do, and they're going to continue doing it. They've never not done that. It's just like the commonplace, not even the commonplace, I don't know. I don't even think this is really about the commonplace. I think the commonplace kind of just goes wherever these big heads go, you know? You have these pinpoints in society, and you have the people who flourish to those pinpoints. Pinpoints mean the big heads, you know? Because we're really talking about, you know, this is all in service of the common plague, you know? What are the other big hashtags, the big words, like the sex positivity or sex work or all the oppositions, whether it's religious. You got some feminist movements are in opposition to pornography. You also got kind of these fads with you know, sex addiction, porn addiction sort of thing, which just needs to understand their body, but we're going to get off that right now. This is about sex positivity, I guess. I don't know. We talked about, you couldn't really talk about the opposition without talking about, well, you could. But if you're talking about sex, I mean, it was a sex positive conversation. So it was refuting them by also putting in sex positive stuff. So, you know, it's an angle to talk about sex work, to talk about sexual expression through the putting a lens on the people who are in opposition to that. That's all there. I wanted to make a sequel to that, and you know, I mentioned this. I mentioned this in the other videos, the ones I erased, and this one I'll mention it here. That there might be something, and I've of course mentioned this in other videos that aren't erased or out there somewhere. That because sex is so vital to pretty much any species, procreation and just they're vital in that they're there, they're natural, they're a basic bodily infrastructure, and so those things being expressed makes sense. It's natural for those things to be expressed. That there might be a natural opposition to it, and you know, we have these wars and all the things that we have opposition to. It feels it makes sense that in opposition to sex also there's something combating opposition to sex because it's so specific is easier to talk about. Sex positivity is an umbrella term for just being okay that you're a sexual creature. I mean, that's all. Ultimately, that's the movement. And they use practices. You got the slut walks. You got these figures like the Emily Willises and Nina Hartley. You have these figures. Some of these filmmakers. You know, they got this. This podcast. Well, they got the not podcast, but they got a show out called Cam Girlfriend. It's like Lily LeBeau, I think her name is Lily LeBeau, and it's another kind of a take on on a couple in which the girlfriend just happens to be a cam model. So that's a very cool thing. And I like the show. It's a very well written show, and the acting was really good. But that was just an example. And you got HBO. You have ever seen like HBO Real Sex? This is a really good show. If it's like one of the best, I think one of the best sex education shows ever created. I really do think that, and I think something like that they should definitely consider reviving something like that, because I think we're going to need it. I think people. You know, the sex industry was able to navigate through societies because of them being kind of on the outskirts. So it's easy to find. In a way, it makes it easy for them to attract the people who would be interested in that kind of stuff. Trying to get mainstream, like they've always have. It's just now with the internet, it's just more accessible to put your stuff out there. You don't have to try to navigate through and try to get all these, try to get somebody to put out your article and shit like that. Get hired by an organization to then express yourself as a sex positive feminist or someone who's generally, maybe you're in the industry yourself, maybe you're a big name, considered a big name. But now with the internet, jabronis like myself can just kind of put out information and shit like that. Just because I guess I'm considered a part of that common clay. So you can just put information out there, and it's weird. I'm not really sure how one could do that. The strategy, I don't know. If I'm Peter Pan, this is just kind of a. It's kind of a. Well, I've used this word before. Well, I'm just expressing myself. This is my own little world, so I'm just expressing myself in my own little world. And the platforms I use, I feel free to use most of that. So that's good. And now that they're trying to reach, we're trying to get to a conclusion. We fought this shit, and we found angles to get through, man. And look, to be very fair, I mean, you got Stormy Daniels out there kicking ass. You got these shows. You got a lot of, you got the slut walks, which I've been to a slut walk at my college, and it really showed that that's becoming a lot more easily recognized, and so. It's like we just got the hiccups, right? We got Pornhub got a big hiccup with these religious groups. You got these beliefs about porn addiction, which, and there's a lot of confusion, in terms of that. And I understand that confusion just because, and even though the research doesn't back up their claims, and I've already expressed why they might feel the way they feel. I'm not gonna bring it up here because I don't want to. It's honestly like I have no original idea. There's really no original ideas on this channel, man. Like this is information one can find. I mean, I'm not a professor. I'm just a motherfucker like to talk. That's it. Yo, I've done a video about one of my favorite porn companies. All I did is most of it is just me just like, hey, there's these people that in a way this is just, it's a video for them, it's a video that because they done all that shit, so I want them to get their credit, from Wikipedia to fucking the fans to the people who own those properties, to them, I'm just a customer. And happy customer, and I'm just kind of putting out my likeness to that stuff, including porn and the sex industry in general. And this channel is sex positivity. The fact that I want to be able to, if certain platforms were treated like a YouTube, and that people can make reaction videos and people can just talk about it. And this platform, platforms like this, platforms like others, do this. If I might upload this to other players, so I don't know who's seeing this shit. So I'm like trying to be like, who am I talking to? I'm not sure who I'm talking about. I'm not sure who's watching this shit. So I don't know. There's a couple go-tos, so I don't know. This might go somewhere else. Who knows? But this is a sex positivity thing here. Sex positivity. There's so many venues. You know, you're out there, man. And it's not even like a specific thing. You know, the thing about sex positivity is just accepting the fact that you're a mammal, you're a sexual creature, and that's okay. And in the rants, man, I was going on before this 7th or 8th or 10th was just me. I was so hopeless because I kind of talked about how like you know, like I said about how there might be something a natural opposition to it, but also like we have all these like we're a species that just okay. So I've said that in opposition to that to oppose that I also said so it got real got real nihilistic you know, about at least in this very specific way like I kept thinking about the crusade. I just kept thinking about history. I'm like, it's hard to imagine that we have finally reached a place where we're done with the crusade, that we're closer to that, at least in this territory, that they're done with the crusade, at least in the general sense. You may not be able to say that for other countries, but in other continents, but you could say that for at least the United States, we're closer to that. I mean, in other places like Europe, definitely. Of course, and hell, we might even be behind in so many ways, and we're all behind the Netherlands, all of us, really. They're kind of ahead. They almost are too ahead in some instances, but in Denmark and shit. So, like, Denmark and, like, those territories you don't ever hear about, they're, like, ahead of everybody in terms of... They're ahead of so many different things, like the way they handle criminality. Hell, there was a big... I don't believe in... They're the last was just, like, a bunch of shit I don't believe in, and... you know... Because, you know, crime doesn't actually exist, and neither does... Because every culture is a cult, and I you know, that's another thing about it. It's just like every culture is a cult, you know. I think it's a good approach to not differentiate people's... You can differentiate details and stuff, but, like, remember who the species, that they're all the same species, so keep that in mind, you know, whether they're Nazis, whether they're Black Lives Movement, whether you consider those organizations a positive, negative thing, that they are of the same species. So it's important to keep that in mind. So I got so nihilistic. I was just like, man, humans are just going to be fucking themselves out. And I'm like, no, I mean, come on, man. We are now at the precipice of, like, changing the general mindset about gender. We're finally, you know, kind of liberating ourselves as a species away from that shit, at least in these territories. And this is a very pinpoint territory, and other countries are going to look at that, and other continents, other people in those continents are going to look at that. And they're like, hey, maybe there's something there, you know. So if there's any place that's going to do that, I think the United States is a good strategy. I think Europe is a good one. Denmark keeps, you know, you keep being Denmark and Netherlands and all those places. And we all have different, we're all the same. We're all the same. And the differentials are just kind of in the way that we treat each other, and the behaviors differentiate slightly, ever so slightly, but they're, you know, but they're kind of the same. They should be. We're human species. We're animals, just like, I mean, even though humans like to not think of themselves as animals, okay. But, you know, like I said, all cultures are cults, and I think you at least should recognize that and try to see them in a way. As a respect thing, you know, you want to be at their level. You want to talk on their level. You want to keep at that level. It helps when you want to reach people. Is you need to understand, because it's very easy. Just they're human too. So just keep that in mind. Don't turn people into monsters. You know, I don't care who they are. Don't turn them into monsters. Don't give them that kind of. Don't give other humans that kind of credit. You know, I know that's a very popular thing to throw around, monster and stuff at people, but don't do that. You know, you don't make people that, don't give them that kind of credit, that's not healthy for anybody to do. You're turning them into something they're not. You're turning an idea of somebody being something they're not. Humans vary, they vary in different ways. Another thing, and I mean, yeah, and don't forget history, please. Make sure you stay on that goddamn history, because when you read history, no, humans are pretty much, even if that thing is bewildered, it's just like humans are incredibly sensitive to whatever their sensibilities are, and navigating out of those, trying, seeing, hell, you notice this shit when you watch a movie and it kind of throws you off, You might be completely, you might even use the word disgusted when you look at certain things, but I don't know. You look at history, man. They'll at least show you that humans are malleable to different things, man, and they can be clocked in. They can be honed in on whatever that. So and it's hard to get out of it. But I mean, malleable in that they're malleable at some point. They might get hardened as they continue to interact with whatever they're interacting with, and might hold on some. It might be difficult to change, but it's only difficult to change, not impossible. It's still malleable. At least to see from a different perspective, even if they don't agree with it. And when it comes to sexual expression, it's the same thing, even though it's a basic thing, people have different perspectives of it. And I think in order to reach those people, you just have to understand that. It's the best approach, really. I mean, I think takeovers like the gender, that was a really good. I'm not entirely sure. Well, it's because so many people were involved. It's one thing to be like, oh, these people in their A say it's about gender, until it's your family member, until it's you. Until you start realizing, you know what? I always wanted to wear a dress, or I didn't like suits and shit. And you don't have to be in a down low. You can be expressive. That's a very exciting. This is a very exciting space for humans, at least in these territories. And they're going to be, those things are going to be looked at from other people in other continents and countries. So, for the sex positive stuff, a lot of this is just like, keep it up. You guys are doing well. We don't really have a lot to say. It's all out there, man. Those oppositions, as some people might say, God help them. I don't know, man. I really wish they didn't feel this guilt or this stuff against their own natural tendencies, and understand them. It's one thing to be modest about the things you do, or be suspicious about certain industries if you're in a feminist way and you're kind of anti-pornography. There's a lot of channels I watch, or at least not a lot of them, but there's channels I've watched and ones I'm watching, and they might actually be anti-porn. There's just an area that they haven't really, and again, it's like, it tells me, one, they're not getting that information. They're not talking to some of these people that can tell them that, like, and again, if you talk to them, they're kind of in their own room and they kind of are in their own space, so they can just say what they want. But I feel like if I have a conversation with them, I can at least open them as like, well, there's people who absolutely, and I think, would you be open if there was an organization where the production is maybe all female? Just give them some kind of ideas. They might go, no, because it's still they might have a thing against men in general. And you get a sense with some of them, people will take something as broad as feminism, and they have, because it's so broad, they have their own kind of personal spin on it. There's even the cliche of the feminist who hates men, and it's a funny thing, because you understand that pain, but that's why it's so funny. They know that they have a lot of pain and they have a lot of these ideas, and you feel bad because they're on the side, but they're also like, I really wish they didn't have this hatred toward dudes. I just don't have hatred toward anyone. I think we should always understand. There's these beautiful videos of like Jewish native meeting people who were involved in Nazi practices and having just a conversation. it's such beautiful things to me, to be able to sit across somebody and it kind of breaks the idea that that person was ever a monster. They're just like you. They just were in the they were just in the they were in the crowd. They were part of it. And that person, I think, the specific video I'm talking about, there's I'm sure there's a lot of those kind of things happening, not on camera, but you know, I'm sure countless, a lot of awkward and very revealing pub conversations between people who were Nazis, or at least family members, or even neo-Nazis, and people who were neo-Nazis, and people who were, you know what I mean? There was this, I want to say, well, what was that church that was like God hates, and they threw out the F-bomb, God hates the gays, and all that group. A lot of those people kind of turned away from that culture and from that family, and it's stuff like that that just lets you know that, you know, humans, you know, you're in these groups, and it's really hard to see past it. Humans are creatures of convenience, or humans, or we're creatures of patterns and sets. You know, that's why when people use the expression "life is short" or "too short," it's not that life is short or it seems short. I mean, life is days are just they're mostly just there's an illusion factor in it, because all we're really seeing is just a difference in the way that the sun and the earth interact with each other, and the sky interacts with the earth, and that we're just seeing a consistent pattern. And then you throw in some seasons. Not that today is different than the other day. That's just, it's an illusion, a lot of it. You know, if you're a medical student, you know what I'm talking about. You never slept ever. You're always just up studying, and if you're someone who's just like nocturnal, you know what I'm talking about. It's all just an illusion. It's and the way that we express it. And I think that's important to realize that, because things like the expression like time, life is short, or even time, and that in the way that people use it in that kind of philosophy, even though it's more of a construct, it's a mathematical philosophy. It's become more of a philosophy. It's just math. When it comes to those sort of expressions like life is too short, it's not that life is too short. It's just that we're creatures of patterns and convenience, and so our brains navigate through those patterns, and so things seem shorter. But I don't even know what shorter is to write. I think that's just an expression, it's the best expression it came up with that seems to align with our feelings, but that's not really what's going on. Things can seem more on the surface. It's just, I mean, what is your brain but just a collection of memory files that you bring to the surface, and ones that are more backed up because of other things that might be in front of it. In the precipitations, depending on that experience. So the things that are a little bit more maybe a pain in some way, whether those are emotional pains or physical pains, might come into the surface, and so that's where you have memories might be stronger. You can maybe stronger, weaker memories more accurate than saying past. And I mean, past isn't real, present isn't real if it's always consistent, and the future isn't real because there's no actual future. It's just a set foundation in which you have a bunch of sets that are naturally the ability to change, and that's all it is. Just it's a lot of illusions, but the illusions have a reason why we express in those ways. And I think that's important to point out, because much like the way we topple on top of these ideas about sexual expression, we don't realize that a lot of this stuff is just really innate, and that we're just like any other creature. And it goes in a lot of that pocket of culture that we're not animals, and we like, well, we're humans and they're animals. I've heard people I really like say shit like that. It's like, I know you're making a point, but I want you to be accurate with your language, because I understand that you're using philosophy, but that's not true in nature. Nature doesn't look at you or see you that way, and nature, meaning it doesn't even have a conscience. Nature is just kind of it's an expression of the foundation that we're active around. That's it. The foundation itself is not aware of you, nor does it care. The Earth doesn't need humans, and the universe doesn't need the Earth. And I think that's important to realize. I think we're playing ourselves with these big ideas, and I think this is at the heart of the obsession to sexual expression. I think that's what it is. It's these big ideas. We don't break things down. We kind of leave it up to these big ideas to navigate. Even sexual positivity is a big idea, but its origins is in understanding the basic natural tendencies of the human and any other creature. But I guess the hopelessness came from the fact that the history with humans has been at least consistent. It's a little slice of history, but it does seem grand, even though again we've changed based on the history. I mean, I guess if history isn't real, it's not. I mean, I'm going to do this. I'm going to continue doing this because it's accurate. It's a record. That's all it is. History is just a record. It's just that we kept tabs with shit. That's it. And those tabs can tell us a lot about our behavior. And so, looking at that, it's important to realize that that pattern is only consistent because of things that's going on. And the more knowledge humans gather, there's a lot of variations of how we take that knowledge. I already mentioned the whole sex addiction thing, or at least porn addiction, and these religious oppositions, and how you eat pizza. Really, it's all there. It's because there is a very specific way that people eat pizza. It might seem strange to mention something like that, but it's true. It's consistent in the way that we very much, without realizing, kind of continue to cultivate these ideas that aren't really. Because it doesn't matter how you eat your pizza. It doesn't matter really how you look at sex. It's still a natural tendency. It's going to be natural. Food, much like pizza, it's just like any other food, really. It might differentiate, but it's still just food. It's still just sex. And I'm not saying that those variations might not be dangerous. I mean, that pizza might have a lot of calories, might have a lot of unhealthy intakes of ingredients. And when it comes to sexual expressions, the thing about like safe sex, it's incidental that we live in a world, in a planet that has other creatures and other organisms that interact with us in our life. I mean, much of what a human body is a system of other organisms, and other organisms that are surrounding that organism are those, I guess, almost a country of organisms, or even like a county of if each individual human is like a county of organisms. There are these other variant organisms that interact and might cause some issues, and that's where you have sexually transmitted diseases. That's what I meant. Well, I said there might be variations that might be unhealthy, but those are incidental. There shouldn't be these things that cause problems in sexual behavior. This is why I don't like using incidental reasoning when it comes to that, because those are incidental. We're not supposed to have those things. And so it's always important to keep, again, this is the big thing about education. That's why sex positivity, the way things should go is you're a sexual creature, and you're going to have these tendencies, and that you need to understand those tendencies are okay. And here's the things you can learn about your body. Here's you can learn about sexually transmitted disease to keep yourself safe, and even some law. A lot of this stuff is about the big heads, though. I mean, when we're talking about sex positivity, when we're talking about these oppositions, we are talking about big heads. This is all about navigating the common play. And when it comes to common play themselves, I mean, we're 7-8 billion in right now. So at this space currently, so we're obviously still fucking. They're still going hard, literally, figuratively, and literally. Um, I guess this is about law. This is very much, I mean, sex positivity is about not only the general attitudes, but this is mostly about law. And those laws changing could definitely change attitude. I mean, once gay rights became at least a national thing, very quickly those oppositions kind of got dry. You know, it's like it's all part of law. Like, what do you even argue anymore? So there wasn't much use. I mean, they still do, but it's just less of that. I mean, to a certain extent, there's still a lot of that shit going on, but just not as much. You're not going to hear people like necessarily have anything like, you don't hear about anti-gay stuff. I mean, there's gender stuff, but they're not like anti-gay as much because they know it's law now, and it's generally not a good idea to just do, right? And maybe that sex positivity will follow, once we've kind of lifted some of these barriers, maybe people shut the fuck up. I don't know. But we have to keep in mind that sex has always kind of been this we can only assume it's always been this controversial thing. So also keep that in mind. And we'll get the Emily Willis's of the world to still fight on. Nina Hartley's of the world still fight on. Layla LeBeau or whoever that producer is. I think it's like Camming Life. I think it's the name of the channel. And these films that are coming out. And people, I think, are coming around. I mean, they're still, again, we're still fucking. I just mean in terms of sexual expression in this, in these variations, whether the sex work or, I guess, sex-free life kind of styles. Like, I mentioned. Did I mention HBO's Real Sex? That's a really good sex education show. And that just was about the whole gamut when it comes to the sex industry. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to ramble too much. This is just like a sequel to that. I wanted to come out here and just say something about sex positivity, and even though that video was in opposition, it was already going to touch on that anyway. I mean, that's how you kind of do it. You have to talk. You have to refute those things, so you gotta use positive things, right? I mean, that's a good strategy, anyway. I guess this goes along with all the rants. I mean, collectively, I've just been talking. As far as those numbers, I don't know, but this is my 7th, 8th attempt at this, and I think those other ones are just, those attempts were just like here, little snippets, and no. They were like this. I right now I'm saying this because I feel like, okay, this is it. I think that's it. I think that's all it was. It was like I just needed to talk and get all my thoughts out so I can get to a place where I'm not angry and I'm not upset and I'm not like ranting. I'm just gonna talk, and it's like I'm half positive, also just kind of still in that space where I'm kind of upset. I don't know. But yeah, I think through that bitching, I finally got to a place where I'm like, okay, this is it. I don't know. This ain't. I was like, what kind of video is gonna be? It's gonna be like a what? No, This is not my style. Also, that's not my channel. I feel like my channel's mostly just been, or it's been like highlighting all the other people who really do the thing. I'm just like, I'm a jabroni. Like I'm just a jabroni. I'm out here just. That's the idea though. Like I'm just like I'm a part of the common clay. I'm just one of the people just walking around, this is just me talking. I don't know, and that's kind of it. Anyway, so I don't want this to be like a biggie thing. I just want to put something out there, a sequel to that sort of thing. I'm John Turbo Black Clouds Media, and thank you.